For 30 years, I gave everything to my son, Ethan. I poured my life into raising him, working tirelessly, and nursing him through every illness. I paid for his education, sacrificed my own dreams, and even gave up my marriage to ensure he would have a better life. But the moment I told him I had lost my job, his first response was a cruel blow. He threw me out, calling me a useless burden, parasite. That was when I realized I couldn't swallow my pride any longer. I refused to be the mother who would be stepped on again. I had given him everything, but now it was time for me to stand up for myself. I may have felt like I had nothing, but what he didn't know was that my late employer, a person who truly respected me for my dedication over the years, had left me a fortune. A fortune that would prove to Ethan that the price of betraying me was far greater than he could ever imagine. It was a regular day when I came home and told Ethan that I would no longer be working for Catherine. I hadn't even gotten a chance to explain why when his face darkened with anger. He interrupted me, his voice rising sharply as he shouted, "Why would you suddenly quit? That was $8,000 a month. What are you planning to do now? Just sit around and freeload." The joy I'd felt returning home evaporated in an instant. Did he really think I left my job to simply take it easy? I had returned to make life easier for all of them. His words stung like a slap in the face, but I didn't lash out. I understood that he had been under pressure for years, especially with his wife Nicole's family constantly belittling him. Nicole came from a family of high standards. Her mother was a university professor, and her father worked in local government. To them, Ethan was always beneath her. They constantly looked down on him, making remarks about his salary, his background, everything they could to erode his confidence. Yet, I had hoped that once they discovered the $8 million inheritance Catherine had left me, they would finally see Ethan in a different light. Maybe they would start treating him with the respect he deserved. But I didn't mention the money yet. Instead, I chose to bring up the other reason I had come home. Didn't you say Nicole's planning to get pregnant soon? I thought I could come back early to help her, support her during the pregnancy, and assist with recovery afterward. Maybe even lend a hand with the baby. Nicole's face instantly hardened. If looks could kill, I would have been in pieces. She scoffed. "Postpartum recovery requires professional care," she said flatly. "You used to work as a housekeeper. What would you know about that?" Her mother, Susan, shot me a dismissive glance and joined in. "Taking care of a newborn isn't just about diapers and bottles. It's a science. You need actual training. This isn't something amateurs can handle." The two of them worked together so seamlessly. It was clear they had rehearsed this routine. Just like that, I was dismissed as an unfit caregiver. I let out a silent, bitter laugh. Nothing had changed. They still saw me as beneath them. Still, I kept my composure, forced a smile, and said, "Well, if everything's already arranged, I won't get in the way. I'll leave the baby care to you." Susan rolled her eyes, as if that was the only reasonable thing I'd said all evening. "Fine," she replied, "but you'll cover the cost of the nanny and the baby nurse. I'll handle the hiring and coordination." That one line hit me like a punch to the gut. A tight knot formed in my chest. My son Ethan didn't miss a beat. He immediately jumped in, reinforcing what Susan had said. "Exactly, Mom. You never should have quit that job. Our expenses are about to double soon. You really should keep working." That's when it hit me, clear as day. They never wanted me to come home to rest. They didn't care about my well-being. They just needed a steady paycheck to funnel into their household. In that moment, I realized that all the years I had sacrificed for them, working, raising Ethan, giving up my own life, had amounted to nothing more than a tool for their financial gain. But this time, I wouldn't allow myself to be manipulated any longer. I would not be the pawn in their game. The price of betrayal was about to be much higher than they could ever imagine to owe them. I was nothing more than a laborer, a walking ATM, constantly at their service. At 58, I knew it was time to stop, time to rest, and to retire. But when I finally said it, Nicole let out a bitter laugh, her words sharp and dismissive. "You don't even have a pension. What retirement are you talking about?" Her words hit me like a punch to the gut. I had wanted to invest in a retirement plan years ago, but it was them who had urged me to save the money instead. help pay off their mortgage early, they said. And now they were throwing it all back in my face. Nicole flipped her hair and snapped. That's because your income was pathetic. Who told you to buy a house you couldn't afford without a loan? You should have planned better. Ethan, trying to calm Nicole down, raised his voice at me. Enough, Mom. Nicole's trying to get pregnant and you're stressing her out. This is when we really need the money. You're still in great shape. There's no reason you can't work for another 20 years. Save the retirement talk for when you're 80. The words hit me like a cold wave. Another 20 years? I froze, hollowed out by an overwhelming sadness I couldn't even put into words. After everything, every sacrifice, every hour of work, every dollar earned, I was still nothing more than a cash machine in their eyes. In that moment, I saw it clearly for the first time. All the talk of respect, of gratitude, it was just sugar-coated manipulation to keep me working. Back when Ethan was still in college, he started dating Nicole. To help them live more comfortably and appease her judgmental family, I sacrificed everything. I moved to another city, became a live-in housekeeper, saving up to buy them a house. They never paid a penny toward it, yet the deed was only in their names. And back then, with tears in their eyes, they told me, one day when we're better off, we'll take care of you. You'll finally get the life you deserve. Now I knew exactly what they meant by the life I deserve. A life of endless labor until my body gave out at 80. My heart broke, but I held back the tears. Steadying my voice, I said firmly, I'm retiring. That's final. No one gets to make that decision for me. Susan must have realized I was serious, and I could see the panic in her eyes. Her tone softened, but it didn't hide the calculating edge. Look, it's not that we don't understand, but you have to be realistic. There's no spare room in the house for you. You can't expect to stay here forever. But I have a compromise. I narrowed my eyes, suspicion crawling up my spine. Something about her expression made my stomach twist. I happen to know a wealthy family looking for a live-in assistant. Good pay, room and board included. You've done that kind of work before, so it should be an easy transition. Nicole jumped in, smirking. Perfect idea. Actually, you could even help ease our financial load. Whatever you earn could go toward household expenses. Win-win, right? Susan shrugged and added, You're not someone who really needs rest anyway. Going back to work wouldn't kill you. Don't be so quick to say no. Just give it a try. If you do well, you might even get to stay long-term. I felt my face grow colder by the second. I already quit. I'm not going back into anyone's house to work ever again. Susan's smile faltered. Her gaze shifted, sharp and calculating. Well, if you're really done working for others, fine. She paused, her voice suddenly airtight, but laced with pressure. There's a senior residence nearby. Good facilities, decent meals, lodging. You could apply for a work-based stay. Maybe kitchen help or janitorial services, something to earn your keep. Nicole rolled her eyes and scoffed. Now that's more reasonable. You can't just live in a hotel and expect us to foot the bill. At least in assisted living, you'd be pulling your own weight. Stop expecting us to carry you. Rage simmered in my chest, but I forced myself to stay composed. How had it come to this? After all I had done for them, all the years I had sacrificed, I was now being reduced to this. They wanted me to work, to keep supporting them, to pay my way while they lived their lives. But not anymore. Not this time. I was done being the one who carried the weight of their expectations. I had given them everything, and now it was my turn to finally live for myself. I turned to Ethan, my voice trembling with disbelief. You really think it's acceptable to send your own mother off to scrub floors in a retirement facility just to keep herself fed? His eyes darted away, but he still tried to maintain his composure. Mom, be realistic, he said. You've always said you wanted to be independent. Isn't this the most dignified way to do that? You support yourself, and we don't owe each other anything. I could hardly believe what I was hearing. This was my son, the child I had poured everything into, the one I had dedicated my entire life to raising. And now here he was, eager to push me out the door, as if I was nothing more than dead weight. The anger bubbled inside me, but it was soon replaced with an overwhelming sadness. He pulled out his phone and added, Besides, I already checked. There's an open spot available right now. You can move in today. Without even pausing, he started dialing the number again, right in front of me. Tears began streaming down my face, unstoppable. How had it come to this? I gave everything I had to raise him. I drained my savings to buy him a house, and now, in this moment, all he saw me as was a burden. Is this how you repay your mother? I whispered through the tears. For a brief second, I saw guilt flicker in his eyes, but it vanished quickly, replaced by an intense rage. In an instant, he kicked over my suitcase, sending it crashing to the floor. You think you suffered, he spat. That was your choice. If you hadn't divorced my dad, we wouldn't have ended up broke. I could have grown up rich, and you ruined that. His words struck me like a slap to the face. Let me tell you something, Margaret, he continued, his voice cold and full of venom. You owe me for the rest of your life. I stood there, frozen in stunned silence, staring into his bloodshot eyes. A dull, unrelenting pain tore through my chest like a blunt knife twisting slowly, slicing into everything I had left. The ache in my heart was unbearable. I had spent years sacrificing everything for him. Every tear, every choice, every ounce of energy, and this is what I got in return. He had no idea. The only reason I divorced his father was for him. If I hadn't walked away from that marriage, his so-called wealthy father would never have claimed him as his own. In fact, he might have been tossed into foster care and treated like a stray dog no one wanted. Every single sacrifice I made, every choice I made, was to give him a chance at a better life, a whole life. And yet here he was, blaming me, like a cornered animal fighting back against the very person who had fought so hard to protect him. My hand instinctively pressed against my chest, trying to steady the storm inside me, but the ache only deepened. All those years of devotion, sacrifice, and love felt like the cruelest joke life could have played on me. Ethan wasn't even my biological son. He was adopted. I'll never forget the first time I saw him. I was volunteering at the city's child welfare center. He was barely a year old, frail as a kitten, lips tinged with blue, his tiny body drained of life. The director told me that Ethan had been born with a severe congenital heart defect and that his birth parents had abandoned him in a dumpster. A passerby had heard his faint cries and brought him to the orphanage. Even now, I'm not entirely sure what drew me to him. Maybe it was the way his eyes, full of fear and longing, clung to mine. Or maybe it was because I had lost my own mother at a young age. Something about watching a child suffer was unbearable to me. I went home that day and discussed it with my then husband. After much thought, we decided to adopt him. From that moment on, we crossed the country searching for hospitals and specialists, doing everything we could to save his life. But 2 years later, my husband changed. He said he was tired of raising someone else's child, that he wanted a child of his own. He gave me an ultimatum. Either send Ethan back to the orphanage or leave him and raise the child alone. I didn't hesitate. I chose Ethan. At that time, his condition was still unstable. I was terrified that sending him back to the orphanage would mean delayed treatment, or worse, the end of his life. So, I worked double shifts, sometimes even 3 jobs at once. At night, I would sit at the kitchen table, my eyes burning, making handmade crafts just to scrape together extra income. Through those long, desperate years, I kept him afloat. He survived. He recovered. He grew strong. And eventually he made it to college. But now the child I fought for, the child I gave everything for, was standing in front of me, ready to throw me away like a piece of trash. My heart broke in ways I never thought possible. I never told him the truth about his past, not because I wanted to lie, but because I didn't want to burden him. He was already a sensitive, insecure child, and I didn't want him to carry the weight of knowing that he was first abandoned by his birth parents and then rejected by his adoptive father. I wanted him to believe the world could still be kind, that real love did exist. But never in my worst nightmares did I imagine that he would grow into such a cold, selfish, and ungrateful person. Furious as I am now, there's also a flicker of relief. Thank God I never mentioned the trust fund. If they knew that the $8 million had already been legally transferred to me, I can only imagine how much uglier this situation would have become. I looked at Ethan, my gaze icy and unflinching. If this is how heartless you are, then so be it. From this moment on, we're done. You and I have nothing to do with each other anymore. I reached down, lifted my suitcase, and turned to leave. But Susan suddenly grabbed my arm, her grip firm. What are you saying? This is your son. You're supposed to be responsible for his future. You can't just pack up and walk away like this. Nicole stepped in, echoing her mother's outrage. Yeah, what kind of mother does that? You raised him, and now you want to wash your hands of it? That's unbelievably irresponsible. I let out a cold laugh. You're a college professor, an educated woman, and this is the argument you're making? I shook my head, my voice calm but firm. Legally, a parent is only obligated to care for a child until they turn 18. Me, I've supported Ethan all the way into his 30s. What more does he expect? Ethan's face twisted with anger, his voice rising in fury. That's not parenting. That's you making bad choices and trying to pay off your guilt. Every miserable thing in my life is because of you. You owe me for life. His words hit me like a physical blow. Then, in a voice dripping with venom, he shouted, "Did you ask for my permission when you decided to bring me into this world?" I almost laughed out loud at the sheer madness of it all. He sounded completely deranged. I stared at him, trying to comprehend how someone I had raised could turn into this person. I didn't recognize him anymore. I must have been blind, I said quietly, to have raised someone like you. I paused for a moment, the weight of my next words heavy in the air. And if you've got such deep, twisted philosophical questions, maybe you should ask your birth mother, the one who left you in a dumpster. He froze for a brief moment, his expression confused. But the fury still clung to his face. It didn't matter whether he understood what I just said or not. It no longer concerned me. I shook off Susan's grip and walked toward the door, my heart pounding. I didn't look back. Almost immediately, I heard their angry shouts behind me. You're disowning your own son? You're not even human. Don't get too proud, Margaret, Susan called out. When you're old, sick, and no one wants to take care of you, let's see how far that independence gets you. No one's going to hire a woman your age. When you hit rock bottom, don't come crawling back to us. I paused and turned around slowly, meeting their eyes with cool detachment. You should be more worried about yourselves, I said calmly. Don't forget the house you're living in. The house you treat like your birthright. That house was bought with every penny I scraped together over the years. If I ever decide to take it back, don't be so sure you'll still have a place to live. Nicole stormed to the doorway, pointing a finger at my face, seething with rage. Don't you dare touch this house. It's registered in my and Ethan's names. It's legally ours. You have no claim. The more she shouted, the steadier I felt. Fine, I said, my voice unwavering. Then hear this. I don't care if I have to spend the price of 2 houses. I will not let this house stay in the hands of a bunch of ungrateful leeches. Nicole's eyes widened in disbelief. Then she burst out laughing, her voice mocking. You've lost your mind. 2 houses? You probably don't even have $1,000 to your name. This house is ours. It's our marital property. You're just some washed-up maid trying to bite off more than you can chew. Get lost. People like you deserve to rot on the street. With that, she slammed the door in my face. I didn't respond. I didn't argue. I didn't even flinch. I had given everything for them, sacrificed so much. But now, I realized that it was time to stop giving. They didn't deserve my love, my sacrifice, or my presence. I would find my own path now, one where I didn't have to live in the shadow of their selfishness. That I turned toward the elevator, pulled out my phone, and started browsing listings for luxury homes in the city's most prestigious neighborhoods. A bitter smirk tugged at my lips. If I didn't move into the best house in town, I'd be doing a disservice to the $8 million comfortably sitting in my trust fund. That night, I checked into the city's most exclusive 5-star hotel. Then, I contacted Catherine's private attorney and instructed him to initiate the legal proceedings to reclaim everything that was rightfully mine. Over the next few days, I stayed in that luxurious hotel while diving deep into the city's luxury real estate market, reviewing listings, scheduling viewings, and carefully researching the most prestigious properties available. A week later, I had an appointment to tour a highly sought-after gated villa community, the most prestigious development in the city. What I didn't expect was that the sales agent assigned to show me the property would be none other than Susan's niece, Chloe. The luxury real estate showroom was bustling, despite the starting price of these villas being well over $1 million. The project's exclusivity had drawn a steady stream of prospective buyers. As I stepped into the grand lobby, a young woman with long hair and an eager smile approached me. "Good afternoon, ma'am. Would you like me to walk you through the project details?" she asked politely. "Yes, please. Could you start by showing me the model homes?" I replied. I followed her toward the display area, but we hadn't made it more than a few steps when a sharp voice rang out across the room. "Who's handling client screening today? Do we just let anyone walk in now?" I looked up and there she was, Chloe, Susan's niece, Nicole's cousin. We had only met a few times, but she had left a lasting impression. The classic social climber attitude, one who oozes arrogance in every word and move, always flaunting how she only dealt with high society clients. Before I could react, she was already striding over, her heels clicking confidently on the floor, eyes full of disdain. "Margaret, what are you doing here?" she sneered. I glanced at her coolly and kept walking. "I'm here to view a property. Is there a problem?" Chloe immediately stepped in front of me, blocking my path with a sneer. "A housekeeper? You think you can afford this place? Don't tell me you're just here for the free coffee," she said with a mocking laugh. "I've seen plenty like you pretending to be buyers, just looking to snag some free snacks." Around us, people began glancing over, their expressions a mix of judgment and curiosity. Some even nodded slightly, as if to say she's not wrong. The young assistant beside me spoke gently, trying to diffuse the situation. "Chloe, I'm not busy right now. I can show this lady around." But Chloe shoved her aside without hesitation, her eyes burning with contempt. "And who do you think you are, lecturing me on how to do my job?" she snapped. The assistant shrank back, intimidated, and Chloe turned, waving 2 security guards over. "You two, escort this visitor out of here now." The showroom fell silent. All eyes were on us. I raised my hand calmly, stopping the guards before they could approach. "I came here to view a property. On what grounds are you kicking me out? Where's your manager? I'd like to speak with someone in charge." I turned toward the crowd, who had been watching us. "You're all here to look at properties too. Why don't you tell me, have I done anything inappropriate?" The guards hesitated. I wasn't backing down, and it was clear they didn't want to get involved in something messy. Chloe stood with her arms crossed, scoffing loudly. "Go ahead, make a scene. Let's see how far you'll take this performance." Just then, a young man in a crisp white shirt approached quickly, his polished professional smile in place. "Good afternoon, ma'am. I'm Alex, the sales manager for this project. Is there an issue I can assist with?" Before I could speak, Chloe jumped in. "Alex, she's just here for the freebies. I was about to have security remove her." Alex frowned slightly but kept his tone courteous. "Ma'am, would you mind showing us some form of financial verification? As you know, this is an invitation-only showcase, and we do require proof of purchasing ability." Without hesitation, I pulled out my phone, tapping into the app that displayed the balance of my trust fund. "There's your verification," I said coolly. "Shall I go ahead and schedule the viewing, or would you prefer I leave?" I pulled out the folder, knowing my documents had already been verified at the entrance. But before I could even hand it over, Chloe snatched it from my hands, flipping it open dramatically. $5 million? Are you kidding me?" she shouted loud enough for half the showroom to hear. "A housekeeper? There's no way she has that kind of money. I know her background better than anyone here," she added smugly. "This has to be fake. We can't let someone like her play us." Alex stood there, frowning deeply, clearly caught in the middle. I didn't bother to argue. Instead, I pulled out my phone, opened my banking app, and held it up for them to see. The young assistant leaned in, counting softly under her breath. $1, 000, 000, $8 million. Gasps rippled through the crowd as their eyes widened, no longer judging but stunned, curious, and even slightly in awe. Someone near me whispered, "Damn, she's got serious money." Chloe's face drained of color, cycling rapidly from red to pale green to ghost white. She looked like she wanted to vanish into the floor. But even then, Chloe still wouldn't back down. She kept pushing, her voice sharp and stubborn. That banking app on her phone has to be fake. There's no way she has that kind of money, Chloe insisted. Alex's face darkened, his brow furrowing deeply. Chloe, that's enough. Then he turned to me, his tone more composed and respectful. Ma'am, I truly apologize. This has clearly been a mistake on our part, and we'll handle it appropriately. I'll assign our most experienced client manager to assist you right away. I waved my hand lightly, offering a calm smile. No need. She's perfectly fine, very professional. I want her to show me the property. Alex looked slightly uneasy. Actually, she just started, still in training, technically. I was only worried she might not have enough experience. But I cut him off firmly. I like her. She's professional and I want to work with her. Alex nodded immediately, flustered but eager. Of course, absolutely. Monica, make sure you take excellent care of our distinguished guest. Chloe stood off to the side, her face stiff, her lips twitching with suppressed frustration. She watched me walk away, seething, then muttered under her breath, just a glorified errand maid pretending she's somebody. I ignored her completely and pointed to the scale model at the center of the showroom. I want to see this one, I told Monica. The moment I laid eyes on that villa, I knew. Soaring ceilings in the living room, a spacious backyard garden, a sunroom spanning over 200 square feet. Most importantly, it was fully furnished and move-in ready. I'll take this one, I said without hesitation. Let's get the paperwork started. Monica's eyes lit up with excitement. Ma'am, are you sure you don't want to tour a few more options? I'm free. I'd be happy to show you others. No need, I replied. This one is more than enough. She could barely contain her joy. Ma'am, this will be the first sale I've ever closed. You're my lucky charm. We headed to the signing area, and as I reviewed the paperwork, a low murmur started behind me. Damn, she just signed without a second thought. $150,000. Didn't even blink. Money talks, huh? That's what real wealth looks like. Another voice whispered, don't be fooled. Didn't Chloe say she's just a housekeeper? Probably flashing around her employer's money these days. Even servants know how to put on a show. But she's just parading around with someone else's credit. Seriously, what kind of employer would trust a maid with that kind of cash? Millions. Then, Chloe's voice cut through the whispers, laced with that gossipy venom she wore so well. Oh, you have no idea. She's not your average housekeeper. I felt my stomach tighten, but Chloe went on. No, she's one of those live-in assistants for wealthy old men. You know, not just dusting and mopping, if you catch my drift. There was a stunned silence, and then a voice muttered, no way. At her age? That's just shameless. Another voice, disgusted, added, some people will sell anything for money. If her family knew, wouldn't they be humiliated? I stood there, letting the whispers wash over me, knowing that none of it mattered. Their judgments were irrelevant now. I had what I needed, no longer defined by their opinions or the labels they tried to place on me. The only thing left was to move forward, to claim what was rightfully mine, and leave them to their petty assumptions that I placed the contract down with a steady hand and turned toward Monica. Monica, I said, my smile unwavering. Could you please get Alex for me again? I'd like to purchase another property. The room went completely silent as if the air itself froze. Monica's eyes widened in shock, her voice trembling with disbelief. Ma'am, you're sure you want another one? That's right, I replied calmly. One to live in and one as an investment. I smiled just a little wider, adding, although I do have a small favor. I'd like Alex to assist me with something. Alex returned swiftly, his smile brighter than ever, practically glowing with enthusiasm. Hello again, ma'am. Please let me know what I can do for you. I've confirmed the purchase of the first property, I said, and I'm ready to sign the contract. But I'd also like to add a second unit. I paused, my tone turning cold. However, I expect your team to address the inappropriate behavior of certain staff members. Alex's smile immediately faltered. His gaze swept across the room, quickly landing on Chloe. Chloe, he said sharply, are you causing trouble again? Apologize to the client. Chloe lifted her chin defiantly, refusing to back down. Why should I apologize? I only told the truth. She used to be a housekeeper. One of those live-in types who caters only to rich old men. And don't look at me like that. Her son said it himself. I slowly lifted my head, narrowing my eyes as I locked onto her. You're saying my son told you that? Let me tell you something in return. He also once said that your so-called portfolio of closed deals didn't come from your skills, but from the nights you spent in bed with your clients. Is that true, Chloe? Chloe's face drained of color, her lips trembling. You're lying. That's slander. Oh, didn't you just slander me a few minutes ago? I replied calmly. Now you suddenly understand what defamation means. I turned to Alex, who immediately understood the cue. His expression turned grim. Chloe, that's enough. Security, escort her out of the building. And as of today, you're terminated. Chloe panicked. Tears welled up in her eyes, spilling over. Alex, I wasn't lying. She really used to be a cleaner. Alex's tone remained firm. You violated company conduct policies in a very serious way. Your employment is terminated, effective immediately. I raised my hand to stop the security guards from moving. Hold on, I said calmly. She's not going anywhere just yet. She publicly defamed me, and I'm not letting this slide. Right then, I took out my phone and dialed. Hello. Yes, this is the police department. I'd like to file a report for defamation and public harassment. 10 minutes later, 2 officers arrived at the showroom. After hearing my account and reviewing the incident, they issued Chloe a formal warning. They made it clear that if she didn't offer a public apology, I had every right to press legal charges. Cornered and shaking with rage, Chloe finally mumbled through clenched teeth, I'm sorry. She shot me and Monica one last hateful glance before storming off, her eyes burning with envy. She could barely stand the sight of Monica preparing to close the second sale. Monica, the same woman she had looked down on just an hour ago, now the star closer of the day. By the end of it, I had signed contracts for both properties, paid in full without hesitation. Monica stood by my side, her eyes shimmering with emotion. She could barely get the words out. Ma'am, I can't thank you enough. I've been working here 3 months without a single sale, and today, 2 units back to back. You're honestly my miracle. To show her gratitude, she insisted on personally arranging deep cleaning and moving prep for me. I gladly accepted. For the first time in years, I felt truly light, as if all the humiliation, resentment, and bitterness had been swept away like the dust outside my new villa doors. That evening, just as I returned to my hotel, my phone rang. Then, a voice on the other end said, sharp with irritation, What the hell did you do to ruin Chloe's job? Her whole family is coming after us now, demanding answers. How do you plan to fix this? I leaned back in my chair, savoring the moment. I'll handle it, I said calmly. But Chloe won't be a problem anymore. I answered breezily, let them come. That's your problem now. Didn't I already tell you we're done? I owe you nothing. You stirred up trouble, and now you expect us to deal with the fallout. That's not right. His response sent my blood boiling. Trouble? Are you kidding me? Chloe defamed me in public. She brought it on herself. The police were there. Do you think they just showed up for fun? If this turns into a bigger mess, don't think you'll walk away clean either. Ethan went silent for a beat. When he spoke again, his tone had softened noticeably. All right, let's just move on. By the way, that hesitant, calculated shift in interest, who's your new employer, really? They must be seriously loaded. They seem to be treating you pretty well too. Huh. I couldn't help but laugh silently to myself. There was again the scent of money, and Ethan was sniffing it out like a bloodhound. It doesn't matter who they are, I said, my voice firm. It has nothing to do with you. Ethan, let me say it one more time. We're done for good. With that, I ended the call and blocked every single number from him, Nicole, and their entire family. But what I didn't expect was that just a few days after moving into my new home, I would run into someone I hadn't planned on seeing again, Susan. That afternoon, I was at a high-end piano showroom downtown, browsing options for a grand piano. I had just settled onto the bench, ready to test out the keys, when the front doors swung open and a flurry of footsteps echoed through the space. In walked Susan, surrounded by her ever-present circle of social friends. Their voices were loud and shrill, filled with self-importance. What kind of store is this? Susan scoffed, her voice dripping with disdain. Letting just anyone sit down and bang on a piano? How unprofessional. Her eyes landed on me, and the sarcasm practically dripped from her smile. Margaret, did you even wash your hands before touching that instrument? Weren't you in healthcare for all these years? God knows what kind of germs you've got crawling all over your fingers. Who would have thought such an expensive piano could be so casually contaminated? Her little clique chuckled, whispering among themselves, their eyes scanning me with barely disguised contempt. So that's the housekeeper-in-law you were talking about, one of them remarked, not bothering to lower her voice. Can't even afford to buy one. So she comes here just to pretend. How embarrassing. Another woman, her hair piled into a dramatic bun and oversized sunglasses perched on her nose, gave me a disdainful once-over. Ugh! Nothing more irritating than someone trying to act classy while carrying knockoff handbags. The two sales associates at the showroom exchanged a subtle glance, clearly uncomfortable. One of them approached me and offered a warm, professional smile. Please feel free to continue trying the piano, ma'am. That's exactly what it's here for. No purchase required. I nodded politely, then turned back to the sheet music and prepared to play, trying to ease the growing tension in the room. The other sales associate approached Susan and her group. Ladies, welcome. Is there a particular model you'd like to see? I'd be happy to walk you through our selection. Susan shot me a glance full of frost before replying sharply, we were going to take a look, but now I'm not so sure. Clearly, this store doesn't care about its instruments or its clients. I gave the store associate a calm smile. Clearly, I'll need a bit more time to try a few. I fully intend to make a purchase today. The woman with the bun scoffed and dropped into a nearby sofa, arms crossed. Sure you do. I'll just sit right here and watch how you talk your way out of this. Can't wait to see how you slither off without buying anything. Susan tugged her friend's arm. Come on, let's go somewhere else. Just being near people like this puts me in a bad mood. But I knew better. Susan had already heard from Chloe that I was no longer the woman they thought I was. Their judgment didn't matter now. I was here to buy, and nothing would stop me from doing so. That I had bought 2 villas, and Susan's disbelief was obvious. She clearly wasn't sure whether to believe it, but was afraid I might prove her wrong once again. However, her friend wasn't so easily swayed. I'm staying right here, the woman with the bun said, smirking. I won't sleep tonight if I don't see this woman fall flat on her face. Her words seemed to rally the group. They all stayed, eagerly waiting for what they assumed would be an entertaining disaster. I chose one of my favorite pieces and gently placed my fingers on the piano keys. The notes drifted into the room, soft and steady. The melody of Moonlight Sonata filled the air, flowing with ease and grace. The woman with the bun twisted her mouth in mockery, snorting. What even is that? Sounds like noise. Who taught her to play? She thinks she belongs in a piano store with that mess. Give me a break. Before I could respond, the sales associate standing by my side began clapping, genuine admiration in his eyes. Ma'am, that was beautiful. Honestly, that's one of the most moving renditions of Moonlight Sonata I've heard in a long time. The bun-haired woman rolled her eyes, so dramatically, it almost seemed like she was going to fall over. Oh, please. If she was that talented, she wouldn't be stuck in whatever dead-end life she's living now. Your flattery is a little too obvious, sweetheart. Just then, a few young people stepped into the showroom. They didn't say a word. They simply stood behind me, quietly listening. The moment I lifted my fingers off the keys, a round of spontaneous applause erupted from behind. Wow, that was incredible. I've studied piano for many years, and I still can't bring out that level of emotion in Moonlight Sonata. Seriously, you captured the whole hazy, dreamlike mood so effortlessly. You're amazing. Susan stood nearby, her brow tightening and eyes narrowing, confusion written all over her face. She couldn't seem to wrap her mind around it. How could someone she'd always looked down on play with such grace and skill? The truth was, I owed this moment of peace and music to my late employer. She came from a prestigious family, a woman of elegance and sincerity, the most remarkable person I'd ever met. She never once looked down on me. In fact, She treated me more like a younger sister than an employee. Whenever she had free time, she invited me to join her in learning music, painting, and literature, and I never brushed it off. I studied with dedication, deeply grateful for her generosity and patience. She didn't just change my lifestyle, she transformed my entire spirit. I continued playing, letting the music carry my thoughts, while the bun-haired woman's face soured under the growing stream of praise. She lowered her head, clearly unsettled. Then, in one last desperate attempt to save face, she snapped her head up. So what if you can play one song? Big deal. If you're really that impressive, pay for the piano right now. I had already made my decision. Calmly, I handed my card to the associate. Thank you, ma'am, he said cheerfully. That'll be $155,000. I entered my PIN, and the transaction was approved. Ma'am, may I have your name to finalize the invoice, he asked. Of course, I replied, writing it down. Margaret Turner. The bun-haired woman blanched, her head jerking towards Susan in disbelief. You said she worked for someone else, that the villas she bought weren't even hers. Susan's expression shifted, walking over with a look caught between disbelief and something far more tangled. You bought this piano yourself? And those 2 villas? Those were yours too. I smiled, not saying a word. The invoices and contracts had my name on them. If they weren't mine, then whose would they be? Her face twisted instantly, shock, envy, suspicion, and bitter regret flickering across it. Margaret, you were just a housekeeper. Where did all that money come from? I responded sharply, my voice cold and firm. Every dollar I spent was earned legally and rightfully. Susan scoffed, shaking her head in disbelief. Oh, please. You must have done something shady to get it. The bun-haired woman chimed in immediately. Yeah, maybe she's a scammer. But their words no longer had power over me. I had reclaimed my life, my worth, and nothing they said could change that. That's how people make fast money these days, one woman scoffed, her voice laced with derision. No sooner had those words left her mouth than another woman, who had been quiet up until now, suddenly snapped. What? Scammer? Don't even joke about that. She fumbled for her phone, her hands shaking with anger. Hello, 911, I need the police. There's a con artist here. Before anyone could react, she hung up and stormed toward me, trying to grab at my clothes in a fit of rage. The store staff rushed to hold her back. She was crying, shouting, completely hysterical. And finally I understood. The reason behind her outburst wasn't aimed at me. Her fury wasn't for me. It was for a shadow from her past. 6 months ago, she'd been swindled out of over $100,000. She'd never gotten it back, and the pain had festered so deeply inside her that the mere mention of a scam shattered her control. Her anger was rooted in something much more personal, something I had no part in. The police arrived quickly, and to my surprise, it was the same 2 officers I had met the day I purchased the villas. One of them raised his brows in recognition, a smile tugging at the corner of his mouth. Oh, it's you again, ma'am, he said. I nodded politely, but before I could speak, the curly-haired woman jumped up and shouted, She's a scammer. Officer, arrest her right now. The officer's smile faded as he turned serious. Ma'am, do you have any proof of this accusation? Proof, she snapped, her voice sharp. Of course not. I'm just providing a tip. You should investigate her yourselves. I mean, come on. How could a housekeeper afford villas in Grand Pios? Does that sound normal to you? The officer sighed, spreading his hands. Maybe she won the lottery. It happens. Susan immediately jumped in, her tone cutting. Her winning the lottery? Don't be ridiculous. She's never had a lucky day in her life. Grew up without parents, failed marriage, low-class jobs. People like her don't get lucky, they get desperate. She has no education, no career path. What else could she have done besides some shady business to get that kind of money? The officer's expressions hardened. Ma'am, I advise you to watch your words. Accusations without evidence fall under defamation and personal attacks. We can open a case if needed. Susan's face drained of color. She clammed up instantly, a swirl of emotion rising in me. Frustration, pain, and anger mingled together, but what I felt most was clarity. Life hadn't been easy. I'd grown up alone, struggled through a divorce, and bent over backward to support a son who never appreciated a thing I did. Now, the very people who had once enjoyed my sacrifices were using my lowest moments as ammunition against me. If I had a nemesis in life, it was Susan, her daughter Nicole, and Ethan. They weren't just ungrateful. They were the real curses in my story. But now, finally, I saw them for who they truly were. I pulled out my phone, opened my banking app, and without a word, I turned the screen towards Susan, holding it up for her and everyone else to see. You don't want to see me happy? Tough luck, I said, my voice steady. Looks like heaven had other plans. I pointed at the balance on my phone. See that? Over $8 million. All legal. All mine. No dirty secrets. No tricks. Just blessings. You'll never understand that. And if it makes you sick, well, I hope it ruins your appetite. Susan's water cup slipped from her hand, crashing to the floor with a loud clang. I could almost hear the crack of her pride shattering. $8 million, she gasped, her voice shaking with panic, disbelief clear in her eyes. How the hell do you have that kind of money? Her face twisted, as if something had just clicked in her mind. Oh, now I get it. That's why you cut ties with your son. You got rich and dumped him like trash. How heartless. Margaret, you're unbelievable. I turned to her, my tone sharp and unwavering. Don't twist the story, Susan. I was ready to leave every cent to your daughter and my son. That was my plan. But then you two decided I was a burden. The minute I quit my job, you pushed me out of the house like garbage. You think I forgot that? I paused for a moment, letting my words sink in. The house you're living in? Every dollar that bought it came from me. And not only did you kick me out, you wanted me to scrub floors at a second-rate nursing home just to keep earning for your family. You even suggested it. Her expression faltered, a mixture of disbelief and guilt flickering across her face. But I knew there was no turning back now. The truth was out, and I had finally reclaimed my peace. Go work for some old, rich man as his live-in servant? God knows what kind of services you had in mind. I spat at Susan, my voice dripping with disdain. Tell me, Susan, do you even have a shred of decency left in you? I could have given your whole family a life of luxury, but no chance. You ruined it yourselves. I turned to the growing crowd of onlookers, their curiosity piqued, their attention shifting to the spectacle. Tell me, I continued, my voice rising with conviction, doesn't this pack of ingrates deserve everything they've lost? The crowd's energy shifted. What had once been gossip-filled whispers now transformed into judgmental glares, all aimed squarely at Susan and her friends. Susan's face burned with the fury of a con artist caught mid-scheme. You're lying. We never said you should go work for some old man, she stammered. Oh, I said, my tone calm, my expression unfazed. Should I play the recording for everyone here? Let them hear your exact words. Susan's face went pale. For a brief moment, real fear flashed in her eyes. She opened her mouth to protest, but then her resolve cracked. That recording is probably edited. I'm not listening to that garbage, she snapped, turning away, retreating toward the exit. Margaret, you're cruel to the core. You'll get what's coming to you someday, she yelled over her shoulder. And with that, she stormed out, slamming the door behind her. I exhaled slowly, feeling a weight lift off my shoulders. It was over for now, but I knew better than to think it was truly finished. With that much money on the line, people like Susan and Ethan never stay quiet for long. What I didn't expect, however, was how quickly Ethan would crawl back into the picture. The very next morning, the concierge delivered a massive bouquet of flowers, claiming someone had left it at the gate for me. I frowned as I dragged the flowers inside, sifting through them. Right in the center was a card. Wishing you a lovely weekend, love. Your son, Ethan. I nearly burst out laughing, disgusted to the core. It was so shameless it was almost comical. Without hesitation, I picked up the bouquet and tossed it straight into the kitchen trash can. Then I snapped a photo, crushed petals, bent stems, and the crumpled card all in one frame, and sent it to the gatehouse. From now on, refuse anything sent by this person. Also, kindly forward him this picture. I didn't just want him rejected. I wanted him humiliated. Sure enough, I never received another bouquet from him again. But he didn't give up. He just escalated. He began waiting outside the gated community every single day, rain or shine, workday or weekend, always lurking, desperate. Every time I came or went, he would put on another pitiful act, like a character in a cheap tragedy. One day, he even dropped to his knees on the sidewalk, crying hysterically. "Mom, please don't be angry anymore. Come home. I was wrong, Mom. No matter what, I'm still your son. How can you be this cold to me?" I didn't even bother looking at him. His theatrics only made my skin crawl. Eventually, I got so sick of the scene that I hired a full-time driver. Every day, I sat in the back of the car, windows up, gliding past the front gate and straight into my villa's garage. No eye contact, no conversation, no chance for him to reach me. Ethan kept it up for 2 full weeks, but once it became clear I wasn't budging, he finally gave up. At least I thought he did. But instead of retreating, he changed tactics. He went digging and somehow managed to contact my ex-husband, Richard, who was once Ethan's father, too. That's when things truly began to spiral in ways I hadn't anticipated. Ethan wasn't trying to reconcile anymore. No, he was trying to control me, to push me, to break me down completely. It became obvious that if he couldn't get what he wanted, he'd rather see me destroyed. One afternoon, my phone rang. It was Richard. We hadn't spoken in over 20 years. I had no idea how he even got my number. "I just thought I'd give you a heads up," he said casually. "Ethan came to see me. He cried and begged me to talk you into going back home." I paused, my mind racing. "What did you say?" "I told him it wasn't my business," Richard replied, his voice flat. I reminded him I'm not his biological father. "Whatever's going on between you two has nothing to do with me. I'm an outsider." But Ethan insisted. And with those words, I knew. He wasn't trying to make amends. He was trying to manipulate every person in his orbit, trying to force me back into a life of obedience and submission. He was desperate, and now, more than ever, I was determined to keep moving forward, that I was lying. He even showed up at my office making a scene. I had no choice but to take a paternity test just to shut him up. But I didn't tell him the full truth. I kept the promise I made all those years ago. I didn't reveal his real background. So the bottom line is, he now knows I'm not his father, but you're still his one and only mother. I hung up the phone, already bracing myself. I knew it was only a matter of time before Ethan came knocking on my door again. When he did, I'd be ready. I'd tell him everything, the truth he had been desperate to avoid. I'd tell him to go find the mother who abandoned him in a dumpster and stop trying to tear my life apart. But that confrontation never came. Instead, Ethan took a darker turn, a turn I hadn't anticipated. Roughly a week later, I noticed something strange. The way people in the neighborhood looked at me had changed. Their glances lingered longer. Their smiles grew thinner, more forced. At first, I brushed it off, thinking nothing of it. But then, Monica called me one afternoon. "Margaret," she said, her voice tentative. "I just wanted to say I know you're a good person. Please don't let what people are saying upset you." Confused, I asked, "What are people saying?" That's when I learned the full extent of what had really been happening. I had become an internet sensation, but not the kind I had hoped for. Ethan had started live streaming daily on a popular social media platform. The title of his channel? How My Mother Abandoned Me. I clicked the link and saw the full picture. He hadn't outright accused me of being a mistress or anything scandalous. No, he'd gone for something much more insidious. He had crafted a manipulative sob story, painting himself as the heartbroken abandoned son while twisting me into the cold, ruthless, money-hungry villain. In his streams, he said things like, "My mother never really loved me. I worked so hard, studied so hard, and she wouldn't even support me in the smallest ways." The year I got into college, she left for another city to work as a live-in assistant for rich people, leaving me to live alone in a tiny rental apartment. When I got married, she didn't contribute a single dollar. Even when my wife got pregnant, she never offered a shred of help. Now that she's suddenly rich, she's cut me off completely, like I never existed. I don't even want money. I just want her to acknowledge me as her son. But she won't even say my name. She lives in a mansion now, rides in luxury cars, and enjoys an upper-class life, while I get judged and humiliated on the streets. The comment section exploded. People split into two camps. Some sympathized with him. Others called me heartless. And of course, there were the instigators. A mother like that doesn't deserve to be called one. She should be ashamed. He's so pitiful. I'd do anything to give him the love he never had. His live stream blew up. His follower count skyrocketed. He even started selling merchandise and products on his channel, writing things like, "The warmth your mother never gave you. You deserve better, sweet boy. She doesn't deserve happiness." And then things took an even uglier turn. People started digging into my personal life, my name, my photo, my address. All of it started circulating in comment sections and reposts. I had officially become the face of a social media villain, the most heartless mother on the internet. That evening, my phone rang again. This time, it was my lawyer. "Margaret, we can proceed with legal action right away," my lawyer said. "We can file for removal of defamatory content, demand a public apology, and pursue compensation for damages." I paused for a moment, then smiled calmly. No rush. Let him perform a little longer. I plan to take this into my own hands first. That same night, I registered my own account on StreamNet and launched my own live channel. I titled it, "So This is the Mom Who Abandoned Ethan." First, I dropped into Ethan's stream and sent several $1,000s in donations, instantly grabbing attention and spiking the live chat feed. "Let the show begin." I sent a message across the screen for everyone to see. "Hi everyone, I'm the heartless mother Ethan's been talking about. He's been crying for weeks, saying I cut off his financial support. Come over to my channel and I'll show you the truth. Tonight, I'm giving away $100,000 in cash prizes. Join if you want, first come, first served." Within seconds, a flood of viewers jumped to my stream. Traffic surged wildly as I began sending out the promised rewards. The comment section exploded with excitement. "Thank you, Sugar Mama," one comment read. "This is the real content queen," another said. "Taking notes, she's more loving than my own mom." Riding the wave of viral momentum, I officially began my live broadcast. I didn't waste any time sugarcoating things. I spoke directly into the camera. "First of all, yes, I did cut off financial ties with Ethan," I began. "But that doesn't make me heartless. And it certainly doesn't mean I abandoned him. People deserve the full story. I didn't walk away because I stopped loving him. I walked away because his greed became unbearable." I paused, letting my words sink in. When I first received the inheritance from my late employer, my intention was to leave it all to Ethan and his wife. But do you know what their response was? Instead of gratitude, they accused me of wanting to freeload and teamed up to throw me out of the house. They even suggested I move in with a random elderly man as his living assistant because in their minds, my only value was continuing to work and funnel money into their household. To them, I wasn't a mother. I was a bank account. As I spoke, I displayed a scan of the trust documents from my former employer, a legally notarized statement showing I had inherited more than $8 million in assets. The money I have came from a legitimate trust, left to me by a woman who treated me like family. She had no children of her own and made me her sole beneficiary. The comments blew up again. "Wow, $9 million? What kind of employer does that?" someone posted. Finally, karma rewarding a good heart. This isn't cold, it's clarity. Of course, not everyone was convinced. A few skeptics popped up. "You're his mother, aren't you? Shouldn't you support your child? Cutting him off after marriage sounds pretty cold-blooded." I replied calmly without blinking. "Let me ask you this. Does supporting a child mean you're supposed to be their personal ATM forever? I raised him alone since he was 1 year old, paid his school fees, bought him a house. What did I get in return? Suspicion, rejection, disrespect, and being forced out of my own home. They wanted me to keep working like a machine to subsidize their lifestyle while treating me like a burden." Then I dropped the final card, an audio recording of Ethan on the phone, trying to arrange for me to become a live-in assistant for an elderly man. The call had been captured by the elderly man's household security system. It was undeniable proof. The comments exploded again. "Unbelievable. This isn't just mooching, it's financial abuse. Cutting him off isn't cruelty, it's survival. This is what weaponized guilt looks like. He's not crying for love, he's crying for money. Good for you, ma'am. That son deserved to be cut off. I knew this was just the beginning. Ethan didn't miss a mother, he missed his money supply. In this war, it had only just begun. I looked at the flood of comments on the screen and let out a small, quiet laugh. Then I leaned toward the camera and spoke directly to my audience. The truth is, there was never any need to cut ties with Ethan instantly. Question marks filled the comment feed. I continued calmly, because Ethan was never my biological son to begin with. I adopted him when I was volunteering at a local orphanage. He was just 1 year old then, born with a severe congenital heart defect and abandoned by his birth parents in a dumpster. He was barely clinging to life when I found him. I paused for a moment, letting my words settle. I brought him home out of pure compassion. I spent every penny I had to get him medical care. And my divorce from my ex-husband? That wasn't about infidelity. It was because he insisted on having a biological child and refused to continue raising Ethan. As I let the full weight of the story sink in, I could feel the energy in the room shift. This wasn't just a tale of betrayal. It was the story of a woman who had given everything for a child who couldn't understand the true meaning of love and sacrifice. And now, I was reclaiming the life I had built. I was given a choice. Send Ethan back to the orphanage or leave my marriage and raise him on my own. I chose Ethan. I gave up my marriage, gave up the chance to have my own children just to give him a shot at life. I worked overnight shifts, waited tables, cleaned homes, whatever it took. I scraped and saved until he was healthy again. I put him through college, even bought him a house with my hard-earned money. And what did I get in return? He refused to let me live in that very house. He kicked me out like a stranger. Now he's slandering me online, claiming I abandoned him, and spreading rumors that I slept my way to wealth. Tell me, how should I respond to someone like that? As I spoke, I uploaded a series of images, hospital bills, medical invoices, school tuition receipts, public transit tickets, fragments of a life spent giving, a lifetime of sacrifice captured in paper and ink. The comments exploded. He's vile. Who does that to a woman who saved his life? He used his adoptive mother like a sponge and then threw her away. Disgusting. Living in the house she paid for and still kicked her out? Unbelievable. God gave him life. She gave him everything else, and he turned around and stabbed her in the back. The backlash was immediate. Viewers rushed back into Ethan's stream and began flooding his comment section with outrage. How could we ever support someone like you? Shame on you. You played the victim while bleeding your mother dry. You're the heartless one, not her. Ethan's face turned visibly pale on camera. Why are you all believing her? He shouted. She's lying. If I wasn't her real son, why did she do all that for me? She's manipulating you. No one would go that far for a child that isn't theirs. Back on my stream, more viewers demanded hard proof. Without hesitation, I uploaded a scanned copy of the official adoption certificate. This is the government-issued record, verified, public, and authentic. The comment section erupted once again. That's it. End of discussion. She's telling the truth. This isn't just betrayal, it's moral bankruptcy. He used her love, her money, her life, and still tried to destroy her. Report him. He doesn't deserve a platform. And just when I thought it couldn't get worse, Ethan doubled down. So what if I wasn't her real kid? She didn't have to save me. I never asked her to. Maybe if she hadn't taken me in, I would have been adopted by a real family. She ruined my life. She never should have interfered with my fate. That was the final straw. The internet exploded. You're mad? She saved you? That's the most disgusting thing I've ever heard. Let the whole world see this monster's true face. Report him now. In less than a day, public opinion completely shifted. Ethan went from abandoned victim to ungrateful parasite feeding on his adoptive mother's blood. His streaming channel was permanently suspended by the platform. That same night, my lawyer filed a formal defamation and harassment lawsuit against him, demanding financial compensation for damages. We also filed for an injunction to legally prohibit him from making any further defamatory statements or attacking me through social media platforms. Eventually, the court ruled in our favor. Ethan was found guilty of violating cyber safety and defamation laws. He was ordered to pay damages and cover all legal fees. His streaming privileges were revoked, and his social media accounts were permanently banned. As for me, I was finally completely free. There was no longer any trace of Ethan in my life, and there never would be again. Another 6 months passed, and I finally reclaimed the house that had once been mine. Through a meticulous legal process, my attorney team successfully reversed the property ownership. The day everything was finalized, I stood in the living room, staring at the familiar curtains, watching sunlight spill across the hardwood floor. For the first time in years, I felt truly light, like a heavy weight had been lifted and I could breathe freely again. I finally exhaled after holding my breath for decades. A few days later, Susan's daughter, Ethan's wife, filed for divorce. She signed the papers in her lawyer's office with complete composure, not uttering a single extra word. It was clear she'd seen Ethan for who he truly was, a man who whined about being wronged but never took responsibility, full of resentment but completely devoid of self-awareness. And just like that, Ethan vanished from my life entirely. I didn't ask where he went, nor did I have any interest in looking back. Years passed. Then one day, while chatting with an old friend at a cafe, she casually mentioned, "I heard Ethan ran off to Canada. He's always online, bragging about how free and easy life is over there." Out of curiosity, I searched his name online. What I found was haunting. The video footage showed him disheveled and hunched beside a trash bin on a street corner, gnawing on a piece of moldy bread with vacant, unfocused eyes. Sometimes, he'd break into a manic smile. Other times, he'd burst into uncontrollable sobs that tore through his whole body. He had lost his mind. The same man who once stood in front of a camera, painting me as a villain, fishing for sympathy, selling sorrow for attention, had become exactly what he deserved to be, a ghost on the margins of real life. But I didn't feel satisfaction. I didn't feel anger either. He had simply become the sum of his own choices. No amount of followers could save him. No amount of lies could keep his story standing. He lost the sympathy he'd stolen, ruined the integrity he never valued. And eventually, life did what it always does. It caught up with him. As for me, I was finally done with a battle that had drained me for over 30 years. The 2 villas I'd bought on impulse during that dark chapter, I sold them during the housing market upswing and walked away with a tidy profit. What once symbolized fury and defiance had turned into the foundation of my next chapter. Eventually, I moved to a quiet lakeside town on the western edge of the city. It wasn't the most expensive neighborhood, but it was everything I'd ever wanted. Sunlight flooded the windows, and my garden bloomed with wisteria and roses. The kitchen always smelled of my favorite dark roast coffee. My easel stood beneath the trees, waiting for lazy afternoons of painting. The air was clean, the world slow, and life gentle. No one called me mom, anymore just to demand something. No one accused me of being cold. No one claimed I hadn't done enough. For the first time, I could hear my own breath in the music, in the sunlight. For the first time, I finally belonged to myself. Sometimes people still ask me, "Do you regret adopting Ethan?" I used to think long and hard about that question. But now, when I hear it, I just smile softly and shake my head. No, I say I don't regret it. I only regret not understanding sooner that kindness should never be practiced at the cost of self-destruction. Learning to protect myself was the most important lesson I ever learned in the second half of my life. I was never a perfect person, never a saint. But I became something far better, a woman who finally lived for herself. And it turned out that it wasn't too late at all.